All right, let's dive in. This time, we're taking a trip to the hood with, well, a leprechaun.
Sounds interesting.
It is. We're talking Leprechaun.
Right.
Back to Tha Hood. Our listeners sent in some excerpts about this one, the sixth film in the Leprechaun series. Seems you're curious about what makes this one stand out.
Back to the hood. It definitely takes a unique approach, that's for sure. What really grabs you about this one is how it takes that old finding a pot of gold idea, the classic, and kind of twists it. It makes you think about like wealth and inequality, real world stuff.
Whoa, so we're not just talking about some, silly leprechaun antics.
No, no, it gets deeper than that. The movie starts off right off the bat, throws you into this gritty animated prologue. It's actually pretty cool. They show you the leprechaun's origin story, like where he comes from. And believe it or not, he wasn't always this like rhyme dropping, gold crazy menace. Originally, leprechauns, they were guardians, like protectors of treasure.
Huh, so not all about the mischief then.
Nope. But this one, well, greed kind of took over, got the best of him, became a total hoarder. So, as punishment, banished, sent to the mortal realm. Now, anyone who even thinks about touching his gold, they face his wrath.
Okay, so, instead of a magical protector, we get a supernatural Scrooge McDuck, but with a serious body count. That's a wild fall from grace.
Yeah, totally. And this whole backstory, it really sets the stage for the movie. They're exploring greed, and what happens when you get a sudden windfall of wealth, the kind of power it can have, the destruction it can cause.
Yeah, makes sense.
But before we get into all that, I think it's worth pointing out how different this one feels compared to the one before it,
Eh.
Leprechaun in the Hood.
Yeah, the excerpts mention that too. What's the deal? What's different?
Well, Leprechaun in the Hood, it was very much in that hip-hop world. Back to Thaw Hood, though, it goes for a more straightforward vibe, like horror comedy. The humor is darker, the setting is grittier. We're talking urban Los Angeles here. And even the music changes. It's like they wanted to bring the story down to earth a bit, make it feel more real, while still keeping those over-the-top things that fans love.
So, trading in the hip-hop beats for a grittier urban sound. Makes you wonder if they swapped out the leprechaun's bling for a pair of Timbs.
Haha, maybe. But think about how this change in tone plays into those greed themes we were talking about.
Good point.
The movie introduces this group of friends, Emily, Rory, Lisa, and Jamie. They're all, just trying to make ends meet, dealing with life in a rough part of town. Then, bam, they stumble on a pot of gold at some abandoned construction site. It's like all their problems are solved, a dream come true.
Ah, yeah. The classic easy money trap. But come on, we all know how this goes. Leprechaun's gold. That comes with a price, a big one.
Exactly. And the movie, it doesn't shy away from those consequences. Look at Rory, for example. He starts off a good guy, wants to use the money to help his community. But the gold, it starts to, change him, makes him reckless, paranoid, pushes everyone away. His story really shows you how quickly money, even with good intentions, can twist things up.
Wow. It's like the movie's saying something bigger here. It's not just about a murderous leprechaun, right? It's a warning about greed, how it messes with people, even whole communities.
You got it. It
Yeah.
uses that horror comedy thing to make its point. It's entertaining, but also makes you think. But we can't forget the star of the show, Warwick Davis.
Oh, right. Warwick Davis as the leprechaun. Hard to picture anyone else doing it.
He's fantastic in this one, and Back to the Hood. It's a darker movie, yeah. But Davis, he still brings that signature, that blend of being menacing but also funny, scary one minute, cracking jokes the next, really keeps you hooked.
He truly is the heart and soul of this whole franchise. But I'm guessing Back to the Hood keeps up with those over-the-top kills, right? The Leprechaun series is known for those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Remember that Bond kill excerpt you mentioned? Classic Leprechaun humor, twisted for sure.
Yeah. And what about that concrete mixer scene? That sounded absolutely insane.
Oh, man, that one. A perfect example of them using practical effects in creative ways. It's a lower budget movie, yeah, but the deaths, they are gruesome and memorable, and that's part of what makes this one stand out. It embraces that low budget feel, turns it into a strength, adds to its whole cult classic vibe.
I'm bound to see why people love this movie so much. It's got horror, it's funny, it's got something to say, and of course Warwick Davis. But we've only scratched the surface here. There's so much more to unpack. I'm dying to know what else makes this one tick. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
All right, we're back and still digging into Leprechaun. Back to the Hood. We were just talking about those awesome practical effects. Now it's become like a cult classic.
It's funny. Thinking about all those crazy death scenes, the leprechaun's dark humor, it makes you wonder, is he really the bad guy here? Or is he like a reflection of us, our own obsession with money and all that?
Ooh, that's a really good point. Remember, the leprechaun, he used to be a guardian of treasure. It was his own greed, right, that turned him into this vengeful creature we see in the film. It's like a warning sign, right? What happens when we let all that material stuff consume us?
Yeah, it's like the movie shows that through the people who find the gold. They're from a struggling community facing real-life problems.
Hmm.
At first, the gold seems like the answer, a way out. But then we see it change them, and not in a good way.
Totally. It shows how tempting wealth can be. Like, it blinds you to what really matters. Take Lisa. She wants to be a fashion designer, but she doesn't have the means, you know? When she gets the gold, it fuels that ambition, but it also makes her vain, obsessed with stuff. She loses sight of her goals, her relationships. It all falls apart.
It's that classic story, right? Losing yourself, chasing riches. The movie's not afraid to show the ugly side of that dream.
And it does all that while still being a horror comedy, like that bomb kill we talked about. Gruesome, over the top, but also like funny in a dark way. The filmmakers walk that line so well.
Speaking of those kills, that concrete mixer scene is something else. Brutal, but with that dark humor that makes it both horrifying and hilarious. How do they pull that off?
I think it's the writing, for sure. Warwick Davis's comedic timing, too. Like, he's just so good. And I think they were willing to just go for it, you know? Embrace the absurdity. Yeah, there's gore, but there's also those moments of humor that make it fun to watch.
Totally. It's like they're saying, yeah, it's scary, but we're going to have some fun too.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes Back to the Hood so enjoyable. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, it knows what it is. A fun, crazy horror comedy. But underneath all that, there's that message, right? About society and our values, how easily we get caught up in wanting more status.
It's that depth that makes it more than just a silly slasher movie. It makes you think about your own relationship with money, what you would do in that situation. Could you resist that leprechaun's gold?
That's the question, isn't it? It sticks with you even after the movie's over. Makes you think about your own desires and what you do to get what you want.
And it does all that in this gritty, urban setting, which is so different from the other movies. That setting adds something real to the story.
For sure. The city becomes like another character, showing the struggles and hopes of the people who live there. That abandoned construction site where they find the gold, it's like a symbol of broken dreams, you know, a reminder that things aren't fair, that there's this gap between the rich and everyone else.
Yeah, it's smart how they use the setting to reinforce that social commentary. It's not just about a leprechaun causing mayhem. It's about how the idea of striking it rich can impact people, especially those who are already struggling.
And it wouldn't be the same without Warwick Davis. He is the leprechaun. He gets that mischievous side, the cunning, and that rage, too.
He's amazing at blending humor and
Yeah.
pure menace. One minute he's joking, the next he's, and it just works.
It shows how talented he is.
Yeah.
He could have easily been like a one-note villain, but he brings something more. It's a layered performance. He's scary, funny, and you never know what he's going to do next.
He's the reason people keep watching these movies, even when they know it's coming. He's the Leprechaun franchise, honestly.
Totally. And in Back to the Hood, I think it's one of his best performances. He really takes advantage of that darker, grittier feel, you know? You see how terrifying he can be, but he still has that humor.
Out of curiosity, what stands out to you most about his performance in this one?
You know, I think it's how he shows you the leprechaun's vulnerability, like under all that anger. Remember that scene where he talks about his lost love? It's a quick glimpse into his past, like, he wasn't always this angry being. It makes him more complex, more than just a monster.
Oh, yeah. Those moments of humanity, they make him more interesting. He's not a robot just killing people. He has a history, reasons for doing what he does, even sadness.
Exactly. And Warwick Davis shows you all that. It makes the whole movie better.
Okay, we've talked about the themes, the kills, the setting, Warwick Davis. But there's something else I keep thinking about. The movie's legacy. Critics were mixed on this one, but it's become a cult classic. Why do you think that happened?
I think it's a bunch of things. There's the nostalgia factor. For a lot of fans, this one felt like the franchise getting back to its roots. After Leprechaun in the Hood tried something different, this was like back to basics, horror, comedy, and Warwick Davis being the leprechaun.
And it did all that with a different style, a different energy. The city setting, the darker humor, that social commentary, Makes this one really stand out in the series.
For sure. It's not the same old formula. It takes risks, tries new things, and gives you a new way of looking at the character and the whole mythology.
It shows that even in a long-running franchise, there's always room to try new things and change things up. Back to the Hood proves you can keep the spirit of the original while exploring something new. It's one of those movies that gets better the more you watch it. You see more each time.
Yeah, that's what makes a real cult classic, right? It's a movie that connects with people on a deeper level. It makes you want to talk about it, to think about it, and to just enjoy all its quirks. And Back to the Hood, it's got quirks for
It's
days.
a movie that's not afraid to be weird, over the top, even a little bit shocking, and it works. It reminds you that horror can be fun, funny, and it can make you think all at the same time.
And that's what makes Back to the Hood so great. It's unexpected. It plays with the rules. In the end, it's just a really unique and unforgettable movie. You're entertained, but it also gets your brain working. Not a lot of movies can do that.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think we've really dug into Back to the Hood. We've covered the themes, the characters, those crazy kills, the setting, its legacy, and of course, Warwick Davis. But I have one last question for you, our listener.
Hit me with it.
Thinking about everything we've discussed, the Leprechaun's origin story, what those characters do when they find all that gold, how the movie shows us greed and what it does to people. Do you think Back to the Hood says something about us? About how obsessed we are with material stuff? It's something to think about, and we'll be right back after a quick break to explore it further.
Yeah, that's a good question. It really gets at why this movie, Back to the Hood, is so interesting. Like, on the surface, it's a fun, gory time with Leprechaun who never stops talking. But there's more going on there. It makes you look at yourself, at society, and how we think about money and status.
It's like the movie is holding a mirror up to us, showing us how focused we are on wealth and looking good. The characters, their wants, what they do when they get all that money. It's relatable, even though it's wrapped in this crazy horror comedy shell.
Right, and what makes it even better? It doesn't give you easy answers. It's not saying all money is bad or that wanting nice things is wrong. It's more complicated than that, right? It looks at the good and the bad that can come from wanting things.
Like it's saying, here's a pot of gold. It's opportunity. It's a chance to change your life. But what are you going to do with it? How will it change you?
Exactly. And we see those characters, their ups and downs, and it makes us think, what about our own relationship with money? How important is it to us?
It reminds you that money is powerful. It can lift you up or it can ruin you. It depends on how you handle it. And that's a message that's just as important now as it was back then when the movie came out.
Definitely. Nowadays, it feels like everyone's chasing wealth and fame, showing off what they've got. Back to the Hood is like a little warning. It says maybe real happiness isn't about all that stuff.
And it says it with a lot of humor and, some crazy violence, which makes it even more fun to watch. It's not afraid to show the dark side of people, but it finds ways to make you laugh too, even when things are intense.
The filmmakers found that perfect mix. They made a movie that's entertaining, but also gets you thinking. Not an easy thing to do.
So, to anyone listening, if you want a horror comedy that's got more to offer than just scares and blood, check out Leprechaun, Back to the Hood. It's different from the others. It shows the leprechaun in a new light, and it will make you think about money, what you want in life, and the choices you make.
Yeah, even if you're not a huge horror fan, there's something here for you. The movie pushes the limits, blends genres, and it's just a lot of fun. It shows you how powerful creativity can be and how a good story can stick with you.
I couldn't agree more. We had a blast diving deep into this cult classic with you, exploring everything it has to offer.
Absolutely, a real treat.
We hope we've inspired you to check out Back to the Hood and see for yourself how well it blends horror, comedy, and those social messages. Till next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and watch out for those mischievous leprechauns.